Every diary you hear is bought with hours of life. Be among the first to preserve this library. Become a founding patron. Link in the description.
If I'd had Pa's body, I could have done something with it. Could have made it clean and quiet and useful.
When Pa went silent, 1925 to 1927. Chapter 1. The Last Breath. Pa always smelled like whiskey. The stink hung in his clothes, in the kitchen boards, even in his beard stubble. When he spoke, it was like fire water dripping from his throat. I remember the evening he coughed, louder than usual, face red as raw meat, eyes gone muddy. Then it got quiet. He fell from his chair like a sack of potatoes hitting the root cellar floor. The fire crackled. Ma stared at the flames like nothing had happened. Henry muttered something about God's will. I stood there thinking, that's all. That's how a man goes silent. No thunder. No lightning, just a rattling breath that simply stopped coming. The town didn't wonder much. Peace at last, they said. One less drunk. For me, it was different. For me, it was a new room that could be used. A silence that made space. Pa's body lay on the floor for near about an hour before anybody moved. Not because we were grieving, because none of us quite knew what to do with a dead man in the kitchen. He'd been taking up space for so long, using up air and food and patience, that having him just stop seemed too easy, too quick. Like a knot coming undone when you expected to have to cut through it. Ma finally said to fetch the undertaker from town. Henry went, but he took his time about it. I stayed with Ma and Pa's body. Watched how the color drained out of his face. Turned him gray as old dishwater. Watched how his mouth hung open like he was still trying to cuss, but couldn't find the breath for it. His eyes stayed open too, staring at nothing. I thought about closing them like they do in books, but I didn't. Let him stare. Let him see what not breathing looks like. The undertaker came with his black wagon and his black suit and his black gloves. Professional mourner, that's what he was. Paid to look sad about people he never knew. He took Pa away, wrapped in a sheet. Asked if we wanted a viewing. Ma said no. The Lord's seen him already. That's viewing enough. We buried Pa 2 days later in the churchyard, under a sky the color of iron. Pastor spoke words about salvation and mercy, but his heart wasn't in it. Everybody knew Pa was a mean drunk who never darkened the church door except when Ma dragged him there for Christmas and Easter. Probably burning in hell already, some folks whispered. I didn't care where Pa went, just that he was gone. Standing at that grave, I felt something loosen in my chest, like a rope that had been pulled tight for years, finally went slack. Pa's voice wouldn't wake me at night no more. His fists wouldn't come flying when the whiskey turned him mean. His eyes wouldn't follow me around like I was something he couldn't figure out whether to fix or throw away. Ma didn't cry. Henry didn't cry. I didn't cry. We just stood there, like 3 fence posts, while they lowered Pa into the ground. The sound of dirt hitting the coffin was satisfying. Thump, thump, thump. Like closing a door. Like ending a chapter. Like putting something away that should have been put away years ago. After the funeral, folks came by the house with casseroles and condolences. Talked about what a hard worker Pa had been. What a good provider. Lies. All of it. Pa worked when he felt like it, and drank up what he earned. But people need their stories. Need to pretend the dead were better than they were. Makes them feel safer about their own dying someday. I took Pa's tools that same week. Hammer with a loose head. Nails gone rusty in their can. Knives so dull you couldn't cut butter in August. He never built nothing with them. Never fixed nothing. Just let them sit in the shed gathering dust and spider webs. But I had uses for them. Different uses than he ever imagined. The hammer had weight to it. Good for driving stakes into boards. Good for breaking bones so they'd fit into smaller spaces. Good for the kind of work that needs force behind it. The knives could be sharpened. Could be made useful again. Everything can be made useful if you put in the effort. That first night without Pa in the house, I slept better than I had in years. No snoring, no stumbling around in the dark, knocking into things. No angry muttering in his sleep. Just silence. Clean, pure silence. The kind you can wrap around yourself like a blanket. Ma must have felt it too. She moved different in the house after Pa died. Lighter somehow. Like she'd been carrying something heavy and finally got to set it down. She prayed more. But her prayers sounded different. Less desperate. More like she was having a conversation with someone who was actually listening. Henry took it harder than me or Ma. He'd always tried to be Pa's son proper. Tried to earn something from the old man that was never there to give. After Pa died, Henry walked around like he'd lost his purpose. Kept looking at me sideways. Kept asking what I was doing in the shed all hours. Kept acting like I was the problem, now that Pa wasn't around to be blamed for everything. But Henry didn't understand. Pa dying wasn't a problem. It was a solution. One less voice telling me what I was doing wrong. One less pair of eyes judging every strange thing I did. One less person standing between me and my work. I visited Pa's grave once, about a week after we buried him. Stood there looking at the mound of dirt, not quite settled yet. Thought about what was under there. Thought about how bodies break down in the earth. How they feed the worms and the roots. How they turn into something else entirely. That's when I knew. Death isn't the end of usefulness. It's just the beginning of a different kind of use. Pa was feeding worms now. Feeding trees. Feeding the grass that would grow over him come spring. He was more useful dead than he ever was alive. I walked back to the farm with a new understanding, with a new purpose. Pa taught me something important by dying. He taught me that silence is better than noise, that stillness is better than violence, that the dead serve better than the living ever could. Chapter 2. The Silence After. After Pa, the house was emptier but not lighter. It creaked different when he wasn't there to rage through it. No cursing, no bottles clinking, just Ma, Henry, and me. I liked the silence. It was clean, pure, like someone had wiped away the filth. Pa never built nothing, never sewed nothing, never held nothing together. He let everything fall. Work, money, family. I learned early that things fall apart when nobody holds them together. And I knew this was my work now. The silence had texture to it, had weight. You could feel it pressing down on the house like snow on a roof. Heavy but clean. Cold but honest. Pa's absence was more present than his presence ever was. You noticed the quiet where his noise used to be. Ma filled some of that silence with Bible reading, her voice carrying through the rooms like smoke from a fire that won't quite catch. She read about judgment and righteousness and the wages of sin. I listened while I worked on my projects in the corner. Her words became background music to my stitching. Henry filled the silence with leaving. He went to town more, stayed later, came home smelling like beer and perfume and other people's cigarettes, trying to find something out there that would fill the space Pa left. But there wasn't nothing out there. Nothing that mattered anyway. I filled the silence with my work, with the sound of needle through hide, thread through needle, knots pulled tight, the whisper of preserved skin, the click of bones being arranged just so. These were good sounds, useful sounds, sounds that built instead of destroyed. Sometimes at night, I'd hear Ma crying in her room, soft, like she didn't want nobody to know. Not crying for Pa exactly, more like crying for all the years she spent with him. All the time wasted on a man who never appreciated nothing. I understood that. Time is the one thing you can't get back, can't preserve, can't hold on to no matter how tight you stitch. The house settled into new rhythms without Pa. Breakfast was quieter. Supper was faster. Nobody had to wait for him to wake up from his afternoon drunk before we could eat. Nobody had to walk on eggshells wondering if tonight would be a mean night or just a sad one. I thought about school and how the children used to laugh at me, how I stood outside while they played their games, how I heard them calling, shouting, living their loud little lives. I never heard Pa call for me. Not once. Only Ma called, Bible in hand. Ed, stay away from the girls. They're sin. I obeyed. I listened. I held tight to what was left. The silence taught me things. Taught me that empty space is just opportunity waiting to be filled. Taught me that absence can be more powerful than presence. Taught me that sometimes the best thing a person can do is stop existing, so the rest of us can breathe. I started ranging farther from the farm after Pa died, walking the back roads at night, looking for materials. The silence made me brave, made me curious about what else was out there waiting to be found, waiting to be saved from waste. Found a raccoon one night, fresh, killed by a car, still warm, eyes still bright. I took it home in my satchel and worked on it by lamplight. Made it look alive again. Made it look like it was watching something just out of sight. Gave it purpose it never had when it was just a raccoon, living a raccoon life. The silence after Pa was like fertile ground. You could plant things in it. Things that would grow in directions they couldn't when he was alive, and taking up all the air and light and space. I planted my projects in that silence. Watched them grow. Watched them become more than they were. Henry noticed the change in me. "You're different since Pa died," he said one morning at breakfast. I just smiled. Didn't tell him he was right. Didn't tell him that Pa dying was like a door opening. Like permission I didn't know I needed. Ma noticed too, but she didn't say nothing. Just watched me with those sharp eyes of hers. Eyes that saw more than she let on. Eyes that knew things about me I didn't quite know about myself yet. She'd nod sometimes when I came in from the shed with blood under my fingernails. Nod like she understood. Like she approved. The silence after Pa was sacred space. Was holy ground. Was the foundation I built everything else on. Without that silence, I might have stayed small. Stayed scared. Stayed the strange boy who didn't fit nowhere. But the silence gave me room to grow into who I was meant to be. Sometimes I'd catch myself listening for Pa's voice, for his stumbling footsteps, for his angry muttering. But there was nothing. Just wind in the eaves. Just mice in the walls. Just the good, clean silence of a house that was finally mine to live in. Chapter 3. Tools of Silence. Pa left tools behind. A hammer, rusty nails, dull knives. He never built nothing, but he left things. I took them, not for wood, for other purposes. I stretched hides, cut bones, ground edges sharp again. Sewing alone wasn't enough. I wanted to press, to nail, to hold fast. Forms that wouldn't fall apart no more. If Pa had seen me, he would have cursed. But Pa was silent. Finally, silent. I remember stretching the first hide over a board, like leather for a saddle. I hammered nails in, careful. The sound echoed through the shed wood, dull and sure. Every blow made Pa quieter in my head. Every stitch was a victory over his screaming. The hammer became an extension of my hand. Learned how much force to use. Too soft and the nail bends. Too hard and you split the wood. Just right, and it sinks in smooth. Holds tight. Same principle as sewing, really. Everything's about finding the right amount of pressure. Pa's knives were sorry things when I found them. Blades so dull you could run your thumb along the edge and not feel nothing. But a whetstone and patience fixed that. I learned to sharpen them properly. Learned the angle to hold the blade. Learned the sound good steel makes against stone when you're doing it right. Sharp knives make clean cuts. Clean cuts make better work. Better work makes things that last. I was building a practice. Building a discipline. Building something Pa never could. Because he never cared enough to learn how things work. The nails were easier. Just had to clean the rust off, which I did with an old rag and some oil. Took time, but time was something I had plenty of. Time and silence, and a shed full of materials waiting to be made into something better than they were. I started framing my work different after I got Pa's tools working right. Instead of just stuffing things and setting them in corners, I could mount them, could display them properly. The raccoon went on a board with its paws arranged like it was reaching for something. The bird with mismatched wings got hung from the rafters on good, strong wire. Each piece became a statement, became art. Though I didn't have that word for it then. Just knew they looked right. Looked important. Looked like they meant something. Instead of just being dead things I'd picked up off the road. Henry came into the shed one day while I was working. Watched me hammer a frame together for a new project. "What are you making now?" he asked. His voice had that edge to it, that judgment. "Something useful," I said. Same answer I always gave. "Ain't nothing useful about dead animals nailed to boards, Ed." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the fear behind the judgment. Saw that he was scared of me. Scared of what I was becoming. Scared of what it meant that I wasn't scared of the things normal people are scared of. "More useful than letting them rot," I said. He left after that. Didn't come back to the shed for months. That was fine. The shed was mine anyway. My space. My kingdom of preserved things and sharp tools and silence. The tools taught me about permanence, about how you can take something temporary and make it last. Wood and nails and good hide properly cured can outlast most anything. Can outlast people, that's for sure. Can outlast their memories and their judgments and their fear. I thought about Pa sometimes while I worked with his tools. Thought about how he never made nothing with them, never built, never created. Just let them rust in their corners while he drank himself to death. What a waste. What a goddamn waste of good tools and time and breath. But his loss was my gain. His failure to use what he had gave me permission to use it better, to use it right, to make something that would last longer than his memory. The sound of hammer on nail became my prayer. The scrape of knife through hide became my hymn. The tools Pa left behind became holy relics in my hands, became instruments of preservation, became the means by which I save things from the waste and rot that takes everything eventually. I built a proper workbench using Pa's hammer and some boards from the old chicken coop we tore down. Solid thing, level and strong. Had drawers for storing bones and wire and the small precious things I collected. Had hooks for hanging tools where I could reach them easy. Had a surface I could clean after each project so the next one started fresh. That workbench was better than anything Pa ever made. Was proof that his tools could do good work in the right hands. Was a monument to what happens when you actually care about what you're building. Ma saw the workbench one day when she came looking for Henry. Stood in the shed doorway looking at my setup. At the tools organized on the wall. At the projects in various stages of completion. At the workbench solid and true in the center of it all. "You're more your mother's son than his," she said. Then she turned and left. I thought about that for a long time. About being Ma's son. About what that meant. About whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Decided it didn't matter much either way. I was my own person. Making my own way. Using the tools at hand to build something nobody else could build. The tools of silence, I called them in my head. The hammer that drove things together instead of breaking them apart. The knives that carved and shaped instead of threatening. The nails that held instead of hurt. Pa's legacy, transformed by my hands into something useful, something that would last. Chapter 4, Henry's Eyes. Henry watched me. "You and your critters," he said. His eyes said sick. But Henry knew nothing. He went to town, laughed with girls, stood with men at the store. I stood alone. But alone means free. In the shed, I wasn't alone. My dolls on there. The chicken, the piglet, the cat. They looked at me, silent, faithful. Sometimes I wanted to tell Henry that he understood nothing, that my dolls were more honest than the people in town. They don't lie. They don't mock. They stay. But Henry would have just laughed. His eyes were sharp, but blind. Henry's eyes followed me around the house like Pa's used to, but different. Pa looked at me like I was broken. Henry looked at me like I was dangerous. I preferred dangerous. Broken means needing fixed. Dangerous means leave alone. He started asking Ma about me. I heard them talking in the kitchen when they thought I was in the shed. "Something ain't right with Ed," Henry said. "The way he spends all his time with them dead things ain't natural." Ma's response was quiet, but I heard it. Natural ain't the only way to be right. That shut Henry up for a while. But his eyes kept watching, kept judging, kept trying to figure out if I was just strange or actually dangerous. The answer was both. But he wasn't smart enough to realize that yet. I caught him going through my things once. Found him in the shed when I came back from walking the road. He was holding the cat, turning it over in his hands, looking at the stitching, looking at how I'd preserved it. "Put it down," I said. Voice that didn't leave room for argument. He put it down, but slow, making a show of not being scared. But his hands shook. I saw them shake. "You're sick, Ed. You know that? You're sick in the head." I laughed. Same laugh that makes people step back. He stepped back. Sick is letting things rot when you could save them. Sick is wasting what could be useful. I ain't sick. I'm practical. He left after that, but his eyes got harder, got more suspicious, started looking at me like I was a problem that needed solving. That's when I knew Henry was going to be trouble, eventually. The girls in town liked Henry. He was strong, regular looking, knew how to smile at the right times. Everything I wasn't. He'd come home smelling like their perfume, looking satisfied with himself, looking like he fit somewhere. I didn't fit nowhere. Didn't want to. Fitting means compromising. Means making yourself smaller so other people feel comfortable. I was done making myself smaller. Henry brought a girl home once, showed her the farm, introduced her to Ma, acted like he was something special. The girl smiled and nodded and said all the right things. But I saw her eyes, saw how they looked at everything, judging, measuring, trying to figure out if this poor farm was good enough for her. She saw me watching from the shed door. Her smile faltered. Something in my look made her uncomfortable. Made her move closer to Henry. Made her ask if they could go back to town. After she left, Henry confronted me. "You scared her off. Didn't do nothing. You didn't have to." Just standing there looking at her like that. "You're creepy, Ed. You know that?" I knew it. Didn't care. Creepy just means different in a way that makes people nervous. I was fine with that. Henry's eyes got meaner after that. He started talking about leaving, about getting his own place in town, about putting distance between himself and this farm and Ma and me. Especially me. "You can't stay here forever," he said one night at supper. "Not with him," pointing at me like I wasn't sitting right there. Ma's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "This is Ed's home, same as yours. It ain't the same. He ain't the same. And you know it." Ma didn't answer, just went back to eating. But her silence was an answer, was approval, was permission for me to be exactly what I was. Henry's eyes burned into me from across the table, burned with resentment and fear, and something else I couldn't quite name. Maybe understanding. Maybe the first hint that he knew how this would end. I met his eyes and smiled. Small smile. Private smile. Smile that said I saw him. Saw through him. Saw what he was trying to pretend he wasn't. Scared. He looked away first. After that, the house felt different. Felt tense. Like a rope pulled too tight, starting to fray. Henry spent more time in town. I spent more time in the shed. Ma spent more time reading her Bible, like she was looking for answers to questions she couldn't ask out loud. The shed became my sanctuary more than ever. Henry wouldn't come in no more. Wouldn't even look in when he passed. Just hurried by with his eyes down. Like if he didn't look, it wasn't real. But it was real. My work was real. My dolls were real. And the understanding growing in the space between Henry and me was real. The understanding that we couldn't both stay here. That one of us had to go. I thought about that sometimes while I worked. While I stitched and preserved and arranged my growing collection. Thought about what it would mean if Henry left. Would mean more space. More freedom. More time to focus on my work without his eyes always watching. Always judging. But I also thought about what it would mean if Henry didn't leave. If he stayed and his resentment grew. If he decided to do something about his sick brother, who spent all his time with dead things. If he told the wrong people about what I had in my shed. That thought made my hands work faster. Made me plan more carefully. Made me understand that someday soon, something would have to give. Something would have to change. And I was pretty sure it wouldn't be me. Chapter 5, Ma's Prayers. After Pa, Ma prayed louder. Her voice filled the walls like she wanted to pierce heaven itself. The devil dwells in women, she cried. Men are weak. Only the Lord is strong. I heard her words like threads of fire, each sentence a stitch burning into my flesh. I thought, if words can hold, then so can my stitches. If the Lord holds souls fast, I hold bodies fast. Ma looked at me, stern, sometimes with a gleam in her eyes, like she knew I was doing my work. She never asked about my dolls. She didn't have to ask. She knew. And she nodded. That nod was like God's yes. Ma's prayers got longer after Pa died. Like she had years of prayers stored up that she couldn't say while he was alive, stumbling around drunk and cursing God's name. Now she could pray proper, could fill the house with righteousness instead of whiskey stink. She prayed about women mostly, about their wickedness, about how they tempted men into sin, about how they were vessels of corruption, every last one except her. I listened and learned that women were dangerous, learned that they couldn't be trusted, learned that the only good woman was one who'd been made pure by suffering and submission. I applied this to my work, thought about purity, about how death purifies, how it takes away all the wickedness and wanting and leaves only the essential thing, the form without the filth. Ma caught me listening one day, stopped mid-prayer and looked at me. "You understand, don't you, Edward?" Yes'm. You understand why the Lord made me show you the truth about them? Yes'm. She nodded, satisfied. Went back to her praying. But something had shifted. Some understanding passed between us. Some recognition that we were on the same side of something important. After that, Ma took more interest in my work. Not direct interest. She never came to the shed. But she asked questions. Where had I been? What had I found? Was I keeping busy with useful work? I told her enough to satisfy. Told her I was preserving things that would otherwise be wasted. Told her I was learning skills that might be useful someday. Didn't tell her everything. Some things Ma didn't need to know. Not yet. Her prayers became a kind of permission. Became a shield. When Henry complained about me, Ma would start praying. Would pray about how the Lord works in mysterious ways. Would pray about how some people are chosen for special purposes. Would pray until Henry got frustrated and left the house. I realized Ma was protecting me, was covering for me, was making space for my work to continue. I hadn't expected that. Hadn't thought Ma cared enough about anything except her Bible and her righteousness. But maybe that's exactly why she protected me. Maybe she saw my work as righteous too, as part of God's plan, as the natural extension of everything she'd taught me about purity and preservation and keeping filth at bay. One night I woke to Ma's voice coming from the kitchen. 3 a.m. maybe, or later. She was praying, but different. Speaking in tongues almost. Words that didn't quite make sense, but had rhythm and passion and certainty behind them. I crept to the doorway and listened. She was praying about me. About her son Edward, who the Lord had touched. Who the Lord had given special sight. Who the Lord was preparing for great works. Great works. That phrase stuck with me. Rolled around in my head for days after. What were the great works Ma thought I was being prepared for? What did she see in me that even I didn't see yet? I asked her about it a few days later. We were alone in the kitchen. Her kneading bread. Me mending a tear in my work coat. Ma, what did you mean about great works? She didn't stop kneading. Didn't look up. The Lord reveals his purpose in his time. But you said, I know what I said, and you know what you're meant to do. You've always known, since you were small. Had I? I thought back to when I was little, to Friend, my first doll, to the way I'd felt compelled to save it, to keep it, to preserve it. Maybe Ma was right. Maybe I had always known. Her prayers gave me courage, gave me permission I didn't know I needed. If Ma thought my work was righteous, if she thought the Lord had chosen me for it, then who was I to doubt? Who was Henry to judge? The gleam in Ma's eyes got brighter after that. She watched me with pride almost, with satisfaction. Like she was watching something she'd planted grow exactly the way she'd planned. Sometimes her prayers mentioned specific things. about abominations, about wickedness that needed cleansing, about vessels that needed emptying and purifying. I listened close to these prayers, learned to hear what she wasn't saying directly. Ma was teaching me, had been teaching me all along. Her harsh words about women, her insistence on purity, her obsession with cleanliness. It wasn't just religious mania. It was preparation. It was training for the great works she knew I'd do someday. I started joining her prayers sometimes, adding my voice to hers, praying about preservation and purity and making things clean. Our voices would rise together in the empty house, filling it with purpose. Henry couldn't stand it, would leave when we started praying together, would go to town or to the shed or anywhere else. Couldn't bear to hear what we were praying about. Couldn't bear to think about what it meant. But Ma and me, we understood each other. We had an agreement, unspoken, but firm. She'd protect my work, and I'd fulfill the purpose she'd been preparing me for since birth. The nod she gave me sometimes, that nod of approval, became more frequent, became a signal, became a blessing. Every time I came back from the shed or from walking the roads at night, she'd nod. Just once. Small. But it meant everything. It meant, keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep preparing for the great works. And I did. Chapter 6. Nights in the shed. Nights I sat by lamplight. Scraps of fur, feathers, skin. My hands sticky, my fingers raw. Wind whistled, and sometimes I thought I heard Pa in it. Cursing, griping, calling for whiskey. I stitched faster, harder. Every stitch made him quieter, until he disappeared completely. That's how you silence the dead. You sew their mouths shut. You fill them with straw and rags. Then only a shell remains. And it's quiet. I looked at my works and thought, this is how Pa should have been. Mute, docile, useful. Not roaring, not stinking. Just there. The shed was coldest at night. So cold, sometimes I could see my breath mixing with the lamplight, making ghosts in the air. But I didn't mind. Cold preserved things, kept them from rotting, kept them fresh for my work. I'd built up quite a collection by then. Must have been 15, maybe 20 pieces hanging from the walls and rafters. Each one a story. Each one a rescue. Each one proof that death didn't have to mean waste. The chicken that started it all was still there, though showing its age. The cat with blue button eyes. The piglet. The bird with mismatched wings. The raccoon reaching for something. And newer things. A possum I'd found in a trap. A fox that had been shot by farmers. A crow with feathers black as sin. They watched me work, silent witnesses to everything I did. Sometimes I talked to them while I worked, told them about my day, about Henry's suspicious looks, about Ma's prayers, about the plans forming in my head for bigger projects, better projects. Some nights, the wind would make the shed creak like it was alive, like it was breathing. I'd look up from my work and see all my dolls swaying slightly on their hooks and wires, moving in unison, dancing almost. Those were the best nights, when the shed felt full of presence instead of absence, when my collection felt like a congregation and me their preacher, when I could believe that what I was doing mattered, that it meant something, that it was preparing me for the great works Ma talked about. The thought about Pa on those nights. Thought about his body rotting in the ground while my animals stayed perfect in the shed. Thought about how much better my way was. How much more respectful. How preservation was a kind of love that burial could never match. If I'd had Pa's body, I could have done something with it. Could have made it clean and quiet and useful. Could have turned him into something better than he ever was alive. But they put him in the ground before I understood fully what I was capable of. That was all right. There would be others. There were always others. The roads provided. The woods provided. Death was everywhere, if you knew how to look for it. I started sketching sometimes. Rough drawings of future projects. More ambitious things. Larger animals. Multiple animals combined into something new. Something that had never existed before. Something uniquely mine. The sketches stayed hidden in a box under my workbench. Didn't want Henry finding them. Didn't want anybody seeing what was in my head before I was ready to make it real. But I looked at them sometimes. Studied them. Planned how I'd execute them. What materials I'd need. What techniques I'd have to develop. How I'd mount and display them when they were done. The future spread out before me in those sketches. A future full of possibility. Full of creation. Full of the great works Ma prayed about. Wind howled around the shed. I stitched. My fingers bled sometimes from the needle, but I didn't stop. Blood was just another material. Another kind of thread binding me to my work. Binding my work to me. I thought about Henry sometimes. About his eyes watching. About the fear growing in him. About how eventually that fear would make him do something stupid. Something that would force my hand. But that was for later. For now, there was just the work. Just the steady rhythm of needle through hide. Just the growing collection of silent friends surrounding me. Just the satisfaction of saving things from waste. Just the great works beginning to take shape in my hands, and in my head, and in my future. Chapter 7. The Smoke. Pa went silent, but his silence stayed like smoke in the house. Heavy, hanging, biting. I filled it with my dolls, my stitches, my friends on the wall. Henry grumbled. Ma prayed. I sewed. But sometimes when the lamp flickered, I still smelled whiskey, heard wood cracking like someone walking through the house. And then came the smoke. Not Pa's smoke from the bottle, not Ma's smoke from the stove. Different smoke. Outside smoke. On the field where Henry stood. I remember him calling my name, but I didn't answer right away. I was in the shed when I first noticed it. That particular quality of light you get when something's burning nearby. Orange and wrong. Flickering through the cracks in the shed walls like the sun was dying outside. Took me a minute to register what it meant. Fire. Something was on fire. Not the house, I would have heard Ma screaming. Not the shed, I was in it. Something outside then. Something in the fields, maybe. I put down my work, wiped my hands on my apron, went to the shed door and opened it. Smoke rising from the east field. Thick smoke. Black smoke. The kind of smoke that comes from something that burns hot and fast and won't quit easy. And there was Henry, standing at the edge of it. Just standing there watching, like it was a show put on for his entertainment. The firelight made his face look strange, made shadows dance across it in ways that didn't match how he was standing. "Ed," he called. "Ed." His voice sounded wrong, too calm for someone watching a field burn, too steady, too pleased with himself. I walked toward him slow. No need to hurry. Whatever was burning would burn whether I ran or walked. Fire don't care about urgency. Got closer and saw what was making that particular kind of smoke. Not just grass, not just weeds. Something with weight to it. Something substantial. The old hay shed. The one Pa built 20 years ago and never maintained. The one nobody used anymore because the roof leaked and the walls leaned. The one full of old hay and older memories and probably rats. It burned beautiful. Flames reaching up like they were trying to grab heaven. Smoke so thick it turned the air solid. Heat that hit you in waves from 30 feet away. "What happened?" I asked Henry when I got close enough. He didn't look at me. Kept watching the fire. "Started itself," he said. "Fire don't start itself. This one did." I looked at him proper then. Saw the satisfaction in his face. Saw the small smile he was trying to hide. Saw the way his hands hung at his sides, too casual, too innocent. "You said it," I said, not a question. "Prove it." He still wasn't looking at me. Still watching the fire like it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Maybe for him it was. Maybe destruction was beautiful to people like Henry. People who couldn't create nothing, so they destroyed instead. Why? He finally looked at me then. His eyes were hard, cold, full of something I hadn't seen in them before. Hate, maybe. Or fear so strong it turned into hate. "Needed to," he said. "Needed to burn our hayshed. Needed to burn what was in it." My stomach dropped. Not the sick feeling of fear. The empty feeling of understanding. Of pieces falling into place. Of knowing something before your brain quite catches up. "You went in my shed," I said. "Went in the hay shed. Your shed I wouldn't touch." "What was in the hay shed, Henry?" He smiled then. Full smile. Mean smile. Smile that said he'd won something. Nothing now. I turned and ran back toward my shed. Please let it be locked. Please let the door still be closed. Please let my collection be safe. The shed door stood open. Inside, the walls were bare. My dolls, my friends, my work, all gone. All taken, all burned in that fire Henry started. I stood in the doorway of my empty shed, hand shaking, something rising in my chest that wasn't air and wasn't sound, but needed to come out anyway. Behind me, Henry laughed. Laughed like he'd finally done something right. Like he'd finally solved the problem of his sick brother and his sick projects. The smoke rose higher into the evening sky, carrying with it everything I'd worked for, everything I'd saved, everything I'd loved. And in that moment, standing in my empty shed, with Henry's laughter echoing across the field, I understood. The great works Ma prayed about weren't about animals. They never had been.
Ah. I trust you enjoyed this glimpse into a most curious diary. If so, leave behind a small token of your delight with a like, and do consider joining our circle by subscribing. And remember, ring the little bell, and you shall be the very first to know when another diary or a fresh entry emerges from the shadows. And if a whisper stirs in your mind, a thought, a riddle, perhaps a name of someone whose secrets you would dare to uncover, leave it for me below. I read them one by one. And who knows, your wish may guide my hand to the very next diary I choose from my collection.